Ever wonder what happened when Mel Brooks convinced John Hurt to get an alien bursting from his chest again, or why Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks both turned down starring roles? From Pizza the Hutt's dangerously real melted cheese to the star who never watched Star Wars before, parodying it. Spaceballs is packed with bizarre behind-the-scenes secrets that rival anything from the galaxy far, far away. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Spaceballs. Fact 1. Goosebumps author wrote the novelization. Before R.L. Stine terrified millions of kids with his Goosebumps series, he took on a very different project under the pen name Jovial Bob Stine. In 1987, Stine wrote the official novelization of Spaceballs, and the result was bizarrely different from the movie fans knew and loved. Published by Scholastic as a book for young readers, the novelization had to be cleaned up considerably from Mel Brooks' PG-rated comedy. All the profanity was removed entirely, meaning the famous line about having assholes on the ship was changed to idiots instead. But Stine didn't just censor the language, he actually added completely new scenes and changed existing ones in strange ways. The book includes an entirely new scene in Princess Vespa's bedchamber, where she talks with Dot Matrix about not wanting to marry Prince Valium, and it reveals that Dark Helmet had killed all the other available princes, which explains why Valium was her only option. The novelization also gives names to all 6 of the dinks, calling them Rinky, Blinky, Stinky, Pinky, Finky, and Winky. One of the strangest changes involves Dark Helmet being allergic to raspberries. So when he tastes the raspberry jam used to block the radar, he has an allergic reaction. The book even specifies that Barf is half golden retriever. Many of the film's best jokes were completely absent from the book, and Stine added his own attempts at humor that fell flat on the page. Reviews of the novelization have been universally harsh, with readers complaining that Stine overused exclamation points and actually explained why jokes were supposed to be funny, which made them not funny at all. Fact 2. Pizza the Hutt actor got severe burns. Creating the character of Pizza the Hutt turned into a dangerous nightmare for the production. Mel Brooks wanted the mobster made entirely of pizza to look as realistic and disgusting as possible, so the special effects team used actual hot artificial melted cheese as part of the costume design. The cheese was heated to create the appearance of fresh, bubbling pizza. And while it looked incredibly authentic on screen, it created a serious safety hazard for the performer inside. Actor and effects worker Richard Caron wore the Pizza the Hutt suit, and the experience was absolutely miserable. The hot melted cheese would bubble and drip around him inside the costume. And because the cheese was genuinely hot, Caron suffered second and third degree burns from the suit. During filming, the pain and danger of wearing the costume was bad enough, but things got worse when Mel Brooks decided he needed to do reshoots of the Pizza the Hutt scenes. Caron had already endured burns from the first round of filming and was completely fed up with the dangerous costume. When Brooks insisted on additional takes, Caron refused and quit the production entirely, rather than subject himself to more cheese-related injuries. The voice of Pizza the Hutt was provided by Dom DeLuise, who wisely refused to wear the ridiculous and dangerous costume from the very beginning. While Pizza the Hutt's appearance in the film is brief, the character became one of the most memorable and grotesque creations in the movie, though it came at a serious cost to the performer who had to bring the molten cheese monster to life. Fact 3. Both Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks rejected the lead. Mel Brooks had big ambitions for casting the lead role of Lone Star in Spaceballs. The studio wanted a major Hollywood name to anchor the comedy, so Brooks approached 2 of the biggest rising stars of the 1980s. He first offered the role to Tom Cruise, who was fresh off his success in Top Gun and rapidly becoming one of Hollywood's biggest draws. When Cruise turned down the part, Brooks went after Tom Hanks, who was building his reputation as a comedic actor. Hanks also passed on the opportunity. Brooks later explained his frustration with the studio's insistence on casting a big name, saying that if you make it a Tom movie, it stops being a parody and becomes a Tom movie where you have to build scenes around the star. After both Toms rejected the role, Brooks decided to go in a completely different direction and cast a virtual unknown. Bill Pullman had only appeared in one movie before Spaceballs, and he was performing in a play when Brooks and his wife Anne Bancroft happened to see him and thought he'd be perfect. When Pullman met with Brooks for the first time, the director was refreshingly honest about the casting process. Pullman later recounted that Brooks told him, "I tried to get a Tom and I couldn't get him. I tried to get Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, and I couldn't get them, so I got a Bill." Pullman asked if that was a joke, but Brooks was completely serious. The casting worked out brilliantly, as Pullman's earnest performance perfectly balanced the absurdity around him, and he went on to star in major films like Independence Day, Yick 4. Bill Pullman never saw Star Wars. In one of the most shocking revelations about Spaceballs, Bill Pullman admitted decades later that he had never actually seen Star Wars before taking on the role of Lone Star, Rodishiar, a character who was clearly modeled after Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. By the time Spaceballs went into production in 1987, the original Star Wars trilogy had been completed for years, with A New Hope being a full decade old. The films had become cultural phenomena that seemed impossible to miss, but somehow Pullman had avoided them entirely. In a 30th anniversary interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Pullman confessed that he missed it the first time around and simply needed Mel Brooks to tell him what was going on. He explained that he didn't need to see Star Wars to know what the whole thing was about. This approach to the role was unconventional to say the least, but Brooks was able to guide Pullman through the performance by explaining the character types and situations he was parodying. Pullman later revealed that Brooks actually had the most difficulty writing Lone Star compared to the other characters because there wasn't an obvious voice, shtick, or a clear angle for the hero. The other characters like Dark Helmet, Barf, and Yogurt had instantly recognizable comedic hooks, but Lone Star needed to play things relatively straight as the audience surrogate. Brooks worked closely with Pullman to develop the character, and somehow the actor's lack of Star Wars knowledge didn't hurt the performance at all. Pullman's natural charm and everyman quality made Lone Star work perfectly as the film's grounded center amid all the chaos. Fact 5. Dark Helmet's doll scene was completely improvised. One of the most beloved moments in Spaceballs happened completely by accident and wasn't part of the original screenplay at all. The scene where Dark Helmet plays with action figures of himself and the other characters while acting out a fantasy scenario is now considered one of the funniest sequences in the film, but it only exists because Mel Brooks came up with the idea spontaneously on set one day. Brooks told Rick Moranis about his concept for the scene, and then gave the actor freedom to improvise the entire thing. What makes the accomplishment even more impressive is that Moranis was actually sick the day they filmed the sequence. In a 2015 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Moranis recalled that he wasn't feeling well that day and thinks he had a fever, saying he wasn't at the top of his game, but somehow was able to come up with the improvised dialogue anyway. The scene includes the memorable line where the Dark Helmet action figure says, "Your helmet is so big," which Moranis created on the spot despite not feeling well. George Weiner, who played Colonel Sanders, remembered that Moranis would try to break him up just before each take by making him laugh. But then Moranis would drop his character's visor to hide his own reactions. The scene also includes a clever moment where, if you watch closely, you can see the desk lamp wobbling, because Dark Helmet gets so excited playing with his dolls that he shakes the entire desk. The improvised sequence became so iconic that it's now one of the most quoted and referenced parts of the entire movie. Fact 6. George Lucas loved it, but banned merchandise. Mel Brooks didn't legally need George Lucas's permission to make a Star Wars parody, since parody is protected under fair use. But out of respect for the creator, Brooks sent Lucas the screenplay before production began. Lucas reportedly loved the script and found the idea hilarious, and he even had his special effects company, Industrial Light and Magic, help with the film's visual effects work. Lucas also provided unused footage from the original Star Wars for Brooks to include in Spaceballs. However, Lucas's lawyers did have one major concern and set a specific condition before giving their full blessing. They insisted that Mel Brooks could not produce or sell any Spaceballs merchandise, particularly action figures. Lucas explained to Brooks that if Spaceballs made toys of characters like Dark Helmet and Barf, they would look too similar to Star Wars action figures, which would create legal complications and potentially confuse the marketplace, since Lucas was still making millions of dollars from Star Wars toy sales. Brooks agreed to the restriction, with the novelization being the only exception allowed. But Brooks being Brooks, he couldn't resist turning the situation into comedy gold. The no merchandise agreement directly inspired the film's famous merchandising scene, where Yogurt shows off an absurd array of fake Spaceballs products, including the flamethrower, the lunchbox, the breakfast cereal, and the t-shirt. Brooks said that the merchandising joke and the scene where they rent the Spaceballs VHS tape before the movie is finished were the two gags he was most proud of. After the film's release, George Lucas sent Brooks a letter saying he thought he was going to bust something from laughing so hard. Fact 7. John Hurt was tricked into the alien cameo. John Hurt's brief but hilarious appearance in Spaceballs came about through a combination of his previous working relationship with Mel Brooks and some clever persuasion. Hurt had worked with Brooks before as a producer on The Elephant Man in 1980 and later appeared in Brooks's film History of the World Part 1. When Brooks wanted to create a parody of the famous chest-burster scene from Alien, he naturally thought of Hurt, who had played Kane in the 1979 horror classic. According to Hurt's own recollection, Brooks made the cameo sound like it would be incredibly quick and easy, describing it as just a brief walk-on appearance. Hurt agreed based on that understanding, but when he actually arrived on set, he discovered that the scene was much more elaborate than Brooks had let on. The entire diner sequence was built around recreating the iconic alien moment with a comedic twist, and Hurt's role was central to the whole gag. In later interviews, Hurt joked about feeling he should have asked for a much bigger salary once he realized the scope of what he was filming. Brooks had offered him just $2,000 and a nice hotel room for the cameo. Hurt said that Brooks told him to come over and promised those modest perks, but Hurt later realized he was involved in a scene worth millions while getting only $2,000 and accommodation. Despite feeling slightly shortchanged, Hurt clearly enjoyed the experience and his delivery of the line, "Oh no, not again," when the alien bursts from his chest became one of the film's most memorable moments. Fact 8. Michael Winslow saved production thousands in sound effects. Michael Winslow, best known as Larvell Jones from the Police Academy franchise, brought his unique talents to Spaceballs in a small but memorable role as a radar technician on the Spaceball ship. Winslow had built his entire career on his remarkable ability to create sound effects using only his voice, earning him the nickname the Man of 10,000 Sound Effects. His incredible vocal range and precision allowed him to replicate everything from musical instruments to machinery to animal noises with startling accuracy. When Winslow appeared in his scene aboard Spaceball 1, where he operates the radar system that detects the heroes, he provided every single sound effect for the radar equipment himself during filming. The scene includes the famous bleeps, sweeps, and creeps line, with Winslow vocally creating all those radar sounds in real time. Mel Brooks, who wrote, directed, produced, and starred in Spaceballs, was thrilled with Winslow's contribution and later stated that by having Winslow perform all the sound effects live with his voice, the production saved approximately $1,000 that would have been spent on creating and adding those effects in post-production. While $1,000 might not sound like a massive saving, every bit helped on the film's $22.7 million budget. Winslow's appearance in Spaceballs was just one of many films where he showcased his vocal abilities, though he remains most famous for appearing in all 7 Police Academy movies, making him the only actor to appear in every single entry of that comedy franchise. Fact 9. Mel Brooks suffered terrible allergic reactions as Yogurt. Playing the wise keeper of the Schwartz turned into one of the most physically demanding and uncomfortable experiences of Mel Brooks's career. To create the ancient, mystical appearance of Yogurt, Brooks had to wear gold-colored makeup covering his face and neck. Unfortunately, Brooks had a severe allergic reaction to the makeup, which gave him a terrible rash that spread across his face and neck. The irritation was so bad that Brooks had to take allergy medication throughout the rest of the filming schedule just to manage the symptoms. The makeup sensitivity meant that the production had to shoot most of Yogurt's scenes out of sequence to accommodate Brooks's condition and give his skin time to recover between filming days. But the makeup allergy wasn't the only physical challenge Brooks faced while playing Yogurt. Since the character is very short, similar to Yoda whom he parodies, Brooks had to perform the role while walking on his knees for all of Yogurt's scenes. Even though he wore knee pads for protection, the constant pressure and movement caused Brooks severe knee pain throughout filming. In the DVD audio commentary for Spaceballs, Brooks spoke openly about how difficult it was to play Yogurt, discussing both the painful rash and the constant knee discomfort. Despite all the physical suffering the role caused him, Brooks insisted that it was all worth it because he enjoyed playing Yogurt tremendously and loved the character so much. The combination of dedication and physical comedy that went into creating Yogurt demonstrates Brooks's commitment to getting the perfect performance regardless of personal discomfort. Fact 10. Filmed on the original Wizard of Oz. Soundstage, the scene where Lone Star, Barf, Princess Vespa, and Dot Matrix meet Yogurt for the first time holds a special place in Hollywood history beyond its importance to Spaceballs. Yogurt's temple was constructed on Stage 27 at MGM Studios in Culver City, California, and this particular soundstage had legendary significance in cinema history. Stage 27 was the exact same soundstage where the iconic yellow brick road sequences from The Wizard of Oz were filmed back in 1939. When Mel Brooks was directing the Yogurt Temple scenes in 1986, he was walking on the same floor where Judy Garland, Ray Bolger, Jack Haley, and Burt Lahr had performed as Dorothy and her companions nearly 50 years earlier. Brooks himself noted the connection and said that sometimes while directing, he would imagine seeing Judy Garland and the other Wizard of Oz actors cavorting around the stage. The Spaceballs scene with Yogurt actually contains several deliberate homages to the Wizard of Oz, with the giant Yogurt statue resembling the massive head of Oz the Great and Terrible, and the characters roughly corresponding to Dorothy's companions. Tragically, for film history, Stage 27 was demolished shortly after Spaceballs completed production, making Spaceballs one of the final films to use that historic soundstage. Brooks acknowledged the resemblance of his characters to Dorothy's friends, but claimed it was purely coincidental, though the connection seems pretty deliberate, given he chose to film on that specific stage. The soundstage's demolition means that a piece of Hollywood history spanning from The Wizard of Oz through Spaceballs was lost forever. Fact 11. Actors wore sunglasses between takes for blue screen blindness. During production of Spaceballs in 1986 and 87, the crew held an unusual belief about the dangers of blue screen technology that led to a bizarre on-set practice. Blue screens were still relatively new technology for special effects work at that time, having only become common in the previous decade. The production team had either heard rumors or genuinely believed that extended exposure to the bright blue screen backgrounds could potentially damage actors' eyesight. Based on this concern, they implemented a safety protocol where all the actors were required to wear sunglasses between takes whenever they were filming scenes against the blue screen. Bill Pullman recalled in interviews that Mel Brooks, or the assistant directors, had this belief that blue screens were bad for your eyes, so they would call cut after each take, and everyone would immediately put on their sunglasses to protect their vision. The cast dutifully followed this procedure for a portion of the shoot, taking breaks between filming to rest their eyes. However, the practice was eventually abandoned partway through production when the cast and crew realized it was creating its own problems. According to Pullman, they stopped wearing the sunglasses because it was so hard to work the comedy in between takes when everybody was wearing sunglasses. The tinted lenses made it difficult for actors to maintain the energy and connection needed for comedy, and they couldn't read each other's facial expressions properly. No evidence exists that blue screens actually posed any danger to eyesight, but the sincere concern reflects how new the technology was at the time and how little was understood about working with it. Fact 12. John Candy operated his own tail. When creating the character of Barf, the half-man, half-dog companion to Lone Star, the production faced an interesting challenge in bringing the character to life. Barf is described as a Mog, and his appearance needed to convince audiences he was genuinely part canine. The original design concepts for Barf called for John Candy's face to be completely covered by a dog mask, but MGM Studios refused to allow one of the film's biggest stars to have his recognizable features hidden for the entire movie. The compromise involved giving Candy minimal facial makeup with 2 large dog ears mounted on top of his head. To make the ears move realistically and add to the illusion that Barf was truly part dog, the special effects team rigged remote-controlled wires into the fake ears that could make them twitch and move. However, controlling these mechanical ears with the animatronic elements proved difficult and made it hard for Candy to deliver his naturally spontaneous comedic performance. Bill Pullman later recalled that John Candy's sense of comedy was ephemeral, based on shy and short moments, and the elaborate ear contraptions created real difficulty for Candy in delivering his lines naturally. To complete Barf's canine appearance, the character needed a tail, and rather than having puppeteers control it, John Candy personally operated and controlled his own tail throughout the entire film. This meant Candy had to coordinate his regular acting, his dialogue delivery, his physical comedy, and his tail movements all at the same time. The tail operation added yet another layer of complexity to Candy's performance, but he pulled it off brilliantly. Fact 13. The Millennium Falcon makes a secret cameo. Mel Brooks packed Spaceballs with numerous references to Star Wars and other science fiction films, but one Easter egg is so subtle that most viewers miss it entirely, even after multiple viewings. Just before the famous scene where John Hurt's character experiences the alien chest burster parody, there's a quick exterior establishing shot of the parking lot outside the Space Diner where Lone Star and Barf have stopped. If you look carefully at this shot, you can spot a very familiar spacecraft parked in the lot directly across from the diner. The Millennium Falcon from Star Wars is sitting right there in plain view, suggesting that Han Solo and Chewbacca perhaps stopped at the same diner either just before or during the same time as the Spaceballs heroes. Brooks included this cameo as a loving tribute to the Star Wars franchise, placing it there specifically because of his own personal love for George Lucas's movies. The joke works on multiple levels, both as a sight gag for eagle-eyed fans and as a subtle acknowledgement that these movies exist in a shared universe of science fiction parody. Given that George Lucas had given Brooks his blessing to make the film and even helped with the special effects work, including this Easter egg was Brooks's way of showing respect and affection for the source material. The Millennium Falcon appearance is just one of many Star Wars references throughout Spaceballs, but it remains one of the most clever because it requires viewers to actually pay attention to background details rather than being an obvious joke delivered through dialogue or main action. Fact 14. Lucas provided actual Star Wars footage. The cooperation between George Lucas and Mel Brooks on Spaceballs went far beyond just giving permission to make the parody. Lucas was so supportive of the project that he actively helped Brooks make the film as authentic and high quality as possible. In addition to allowing Industrial Light and Magic, Lucas's special effects company, to work on Spaceballs, Lucas personally provided actual footage from the original Star Wars films for Brooks to use directly in his comedy. Specifically, the escape pod launch sequence that appears in Spaceballs is not newly created footage, but rather unused clips from Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope from 1977. Lucasfilm gave this footage to Mel Brooks to incorporate into Spaceballs, essentially allowing Brooks to use official Star Wars imagery in his parody. This level of cooperation and generosity from Lucas demonstrates just how much he appreciated and enjoyed what Brooks was doing with the parody. Most filmmakers would be protective of their footage and intellectual property, but Lucas recognized that Brooks was creating something affectionate rather than mean-spirited. The use of actual Star Wars footage helped give Spaceballs additional authenticity and allowed Brooks to create certain shots and sequences that would have been prohibitively expensive to produce. From scratch, Lucas's support extended throughout the production, and after seeing the completed film, he sent Brooks a letter expressing how much he loved it. Lucas even commented that if you took out the comedy, Spaceballs really works as an adventure, and he told Brooks he thought he was going to bust something from laughing so hard. Fact 15. President Scroob is an anagram of Brooks. Mel Brooks played 2 roles in Spaceballs, appearing both as the wise yogurt and as the incompetent villainous leader, President Scroob. While most viewers recognize that Brooks named the character after himself, the specific way he did it is a subtle joke that many people never notice. President Scroob's name isn't just similar to Brooks or a play on his name, it's literally Brooks spelled backwards. If you take the letters S-K-R-O-O-B and reverse them, you get B-R-O-O-K-S. This simple anagram represents Brooks's self-deprecating sense of humor and his willingness to make himself the butt of jokes throughout his career. By naming the foolish, bumbling president character after himself through this backward spelling, Brooks was acknowledging his own role as the creative force behind the entire production while simultaneously poking fun at himself. The backwards name also fits with the general wordplay and puns that fill Spaceballs, where character names often have multiple meanings or references. Colonel Sandurs references Colonel Sanders. Princess Vespa's name means wasp in Latin. Prince Valium is named after the sedative, and barf needs no explanation. President Scroob fits perfectly into this pattern of joke names, though his particular joke requires viewers to actually notice the reversal. Brooks never draws attention to this gag in the film itself, allowing it to remain a hidden detail for observant fans to discover. The anagram represents the kind of layered comedy Brooks specialized in throughout his career, where jokes work on multiple levels for different audiences.